Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. It's a very special web event for a number of reasons. One of which is we've had a huge response to this. At last count, looking through attendees, we've got people attending live now across 4 different continents. And I think that's because of the topic. Modern selling skills for accountants and advisors is a crucial topic. So the fact you're here speaks volumes for your mindset, because the typical accountant would think this is not the topic for them. Another reason I think for the big pulling power of this webinar is my co-presenter, and in fact the main presenter today, Nicky Miklos-Woodley. Now, just to introduce Nicky to you, Nicky is the founder of Evergreen Coaching, and she's a specialist in sales training, so mindset, skills, and process. And Paradox and Evergreen have collaborated intensively in recent months to meld together our knowledge, know-how, intellectual property, so that the very latest in sales process and sales skills for any type of business has been melded with what we know is best practice for progressive accounting and advisory firms. And the combination of Evergreen and Paradox together in this area has been really mind-blowing. It's the 1 + 1 equals far more than 2 in terms of the synergy. So let's get into it. We'll set the scene in terms of who this webinar is for. Now, the topic really does lend itself to being appropriate for the leadership. So we're talking about partners, directors, key stakeholders and decision makers, and also really importantly, your advisory team. So if you don't have your advisory team with you now, I highly recommend you sit with them and watch this. Treat it as, or use it as a training resource for your firm. So in particular, when I say advisors, those advisors who manage client relationships. And clearly, if you're interested in how to communicate and influence better, you're serious about growing your firm, or at least improving your firm. You might not want a larger firm, but you might want a better firm. For example, you can improve your mix and the quality of your client base by getting really good at communicating the value of what it is that you deliver. This webinar is not for those who are focused mainly on the technical work and who don't manage client relationships, often called grinders. That's not to say that the technical work in an accounting and advisory firm is not crucial. It is, but you don't have to be a great communicator in terms of the soft skills to be great at number crunching clearly. Doesn't mean you can't put your technical team in front of this content if you are planning on developing their career in that area. Now, the first of a few polls we're going to do today, this will give us a really good indication of who's in the room in terms of where you're at. So the first poll that I'll share with you in a moment, I'll get you thinking, is which services would you like to sell more of? I'll launch that poll now. And you'll see on screen the options that we've put there. Now you do have to vote because I'm not moving on until 80% of you vote. So grab your mouse or trackpad. So which services would you like to sell more of? Business advisory, bookkeeping, financial planning, management accounting, estate planning, succession planning, forecasting, budgeting, that goes under many guises, but forward planning for your business clients, or technology related, IT, tech, or process consulting. Wow, this is really interesting. It's like watching a live chart of the stock market here. As you each vote, we're seeing the bars go up and down. Now, 74% of you have voted. So the remaining 6% to get to our 80%, you got to vote, because it will give context to why we're here today. Because we have a very clear and commercial goal today, is to help you convert more prospects and existing clients onto using your other services. So let me just close that poll now. And let's share the results. So we've got 86% of you voted for business advisory, 46%, equal 46%. In second place, management accounting and forecasting budgeting. Clearly those two are related. We've got in at 43% bookkeeping. It's been really fascinating since the advent of cloud accounting, what's happened with firms' preference for outsourcing versus keeping bookkeeping in-house, because it's so insanely efficient now to do it with data feeds and automation. And some of the less common responses, but still a good percentage of you, estate planning with 25% and succession planning, helping your business owners plan for the future. Very cool. All right, thank you everyone for doing that. Now, this one will be quick. If you could reliably and predictably sell those services that you just answered in that poll, have a guess, have an estimate of what percentage revenue growth. So if you could wave your magic wand and all of a sudden you are as good a communicator as exists in the profession, what growth is available to your firm as a percentage? So launch that poll now and go with your gut. There's no right or wrong answer here. So if you could reliably and predictably sell those services, what percentage revenue growth do you estimate is available to your firm? Okay, 61% of you have voted, 70%. I'm pretty stubborn. Need some more of you to vote. We're getting there. And we're at 79%. Oh, should I round up? Okay. And let's share those results. So 37% of you believe you've got 20% to 40% growth available to you. 19%, so in equal second, you think there's 10 to 20% or greater than 100%. So wow. So obviously some of you may be startup firms that are in your embryonic stage, and that's cool. Now there's, as I said, no right or wrong with that, because you can grow too fast, can't you? So you want to grow at your sweet spot of that pace or that rate so that you've got the capacity to do it. Now, just to set the scene, I'd like to share a quick story with you that I think many of you might relate to. And it's around beliefs in relation to sales. Now, about 25, 26 years ago, the very first business and marketing client that I had to consult to when I was working in a business called the Results Corporation, it was based in Brisbane. And at the time, it was the biggest direct response, guerrilla measurable marketing firm in Australia, serving small and medium-sized enterprises. And the client was a travel agent in Perth, Western Australia. And she came to us because we were marketing. She thought, okay, we'll use results and they'll help us grow. And the first thing that she thought that would help them grow is advertising, because she was already advertising in the newspapers, and she thought that was the first cab off the rank that we'd help her with. But because and my methodology has always been very analytical and data-driven and focusing on leverage points. So where are the areas in the business, which numbers can you shift that small changes in those can produce large benefits and results? And she got a bit frustrated early on because she just wanted us to improve her ads. And meantime, we're going, let's just have a look first at where the opportunities are. And initially, the first opportunity was in her conversion rate of how many people walked into the store to how many people actually ended up booking with her agency. She had 2 different locations in suburban areas in Perth. Now, I'll spare you that part of the story. It was around conversion rate. And without going into the detail, we improved her conversion rate from 18% to 34% in the space of 90 days. But then we went looking for the next leverage point. And I asked the owner of this jet set travel agency, how many items do people generally book when they book with you to travel somewhere? And she said, oh, there's so many things that we need to let them know about and that they should get, like travel insurance, and look at stopovers or shows or car hire, this whole raft of things, day trips. And I said, so how many items per sale do you think is the norm? She went, oh, it'd be 3 or 4 for sure. And I said, okay, let's measure that. And again, her frustration was growing because she's just champing at the bit to get us to actually improve her advertising. But you've got to capitalize on the flow that's already coming into your business before you try to generate more flow. So when we measured it, and we put it in very specific tools to measure that, keep in mind, we're talking about 1992. I was 22, and the data came back, and Ronnie, she was flabbergasted that it came in as about 1.1 items per sale. So that means, if you think about it, they always sold a flight, or the means of transport, typically flights, and only 1 in 10 of their clients were actually buying something else. And Ronnie felt that things like travel insurance were a moral obligation to sell, and she always did, and she was responsible for the 0.1. But she had a team of travel consultants. The word consultant was on her business card, and I always strike a wry smile when I see someone's business card in the accounting or advisory space and they have the word advisor there. And if they're only ever reactive in doing what clients ask them to do, they're just a human vending machine. They're just a reactive order taker. They're not truly advising. We'll talk about a lot of that today. But Ronnie just could not believe that in her whole team of travel sales consultants, they were only selling the flights. So clearly lost revenue opportunity, but from a different perspective, they were just underserving their clients, their customers. And here's the point of this story for you. I firmly believe, and I have plenty of data from our own surveys and from benchmarking surveys like Business Fitnesses, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the accounting profession, that the accounting profession in general is doing exactly the same thing. Figuratively speaking, you guys are only selling the flights. So this jet set travel agency, someone was walking in and saying, I'd like to fly to London and back. Return flight, please. Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Ching, ching. Done. Next. So that's what an advisory and accounting firm does if you only do what they come to you for, because they're blissfully unaware of all of the other future-focused advisory services that you could provide. So ask yourself, are you only selling the flights? It's crucial, because if you are, wow, there's a lot wrong with that. And I think you're not really fulfilling your potential as an advisor. The skill that you have and that you can bring to bear into someone's lives is enormous if you help them build a better future and not just tell them how they went last quarter, last year, of course. So that's a key element of this. In Ronnie's case, so here comes some numbers. I hear accountants are interested in numbers, so I'll share some with you. We got her number of items per sale from that 1.1 to over 3 very quickly. And what we found when we discussed it with the team was the difference was not values and not beliefs. There's a great change management model that, if you could imagine, I don't have a slide for this, so take notes. Values, beliefs, behaviors. So the values, you pretty much need to hire based on values. You're not going to change someone's values. That was up to their mum and dad or whoever brought them up. And the values were the same for Ronnie and her team. And the values were to do the right thing by people, to give great customer service, to really care. But those values resulted in diametrically opposed beliefs between what Ronnie believed and what her team believed. Ronnie believed we owe it to our customers to let them know about all the options they have to have a great trip and to protect themselves with travel insurance. Ronnie's sales consultants believed if a customer wanted something, they would ask for it. They felt that selling was bad, that they were there to just help, and helping is just to do what they're asked. Bum, bum, massive fail. So that's the key there. So now let's get into the main part of today's presentation and the web event. And I'd like to introduce you to Nicky Miklos-Woodley. Nicky, how are you?
Hello, MC. I'm fantastic. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well. It's been so much fun collaborating on this. Really looking forward to running through this. And by the way, everyone, at Paradox, we've used Nicky's services for our last 2 quarterly team training sessions, and they've been amazing. We've achieved some growth spurts, and in fact, we had to take our foot off the marketing and sales pedal because of the growth spurt. We had to deal with that growth. And the numbers around that travel agency for everyone, she went from those 2 agencies totaling in 1992 revenue of $800,000 to over $3.4 million in the space of 18 months without spending $1 more on her advertising, in fact, even without improving it. So this stuff works. So over to you, Nikki to step through today's content, and I'll run a few polls and be back with you for the Q&A.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, MC. And again, hello to everybody. Welcome to this webinar. MC and I have been so thrilled and excited to be able to bring this to you. And as he said, we have been collaborating on this for a while to really look at best practice for the accounting profession and industry, as well as best practice sales and influencing techniques. So we'll continue to jump straight into it. And there's 3 key areas that we are going to have a look at in our time together today. So the first is doing some myth busting. So myth busting is always a bit of fun, and we're going to have a look at 5 key myths that both MC and I hear a lot around selling. We're then going to cover off a 7-step sales system, which has been specifically designed for you and your business in mind. And within that, we also look at the growth grid that MC mentioned before. And we'll finish out by having a look at 9 signs that your sales system or process within the business and the firm may be broken. So not only will you walk away with some fantastic tools and techniques that you can implement into your business pretty much straight away, but you'll also have the ability to have a look at a helicopter view of your business and see where are the gaps, where are the cracks, and how can I plug them. So with that in mind, let's, quick question, this won't be a poll, but we've got some comments, a chat section there. I'd love to know from you guys, what do you think? Are good salespeople born or are they made? Do you think that selling is a learnable skill? So if you think they're born, pop in born in the chats, or if they're made, pop in made, or perhaps it's a combination of the 2. And if that's the case, just pop in combo and let's see what the thoughts are out there. Excellent. So we've got some chats, combo. Combo is definitely the standout here. Thank you guys. You're straight onto it. I'm loving this engagement. We do have someone who has commented made. Yep, there's a couple of maids, but for the most part, combo. Yeah, excellent. Well, let's have a look. I mean, busting these myths is really going to help identify that as well. So myth number 1, you have to have the gift of the gab. We'll go through all of the myths first, and then we'll share the reality. So you have to have the gift of the gab. Sales has to be pushy or fake. And it'll be interesting as we go through this to see if you actually resonate with some of these key things. You don't need to sell. Just as MC said, and that fantastic story that demonstrated so well, a lot of firms don't believe, and businesses in different industries don't believe they need to sell. You need to be an extrovert, or you have to be an extrovert. Or the final myth is advising is very different from selling. Now, let's focus on the first one. You have to have the gift of the gab. This is absolutely not true. I'm busting this myth straight away. Bum, bum, wrong answer. What it comes down to is 100% knowing your stuff. So know the service, the products that you have on offer. Know how it helps your clients and your potential clients understand the problem that it solves. And what can help is having a structured system or process in place to be able to follow. So that can give you confidence. If you've got product knowledge or service knowledge, you get confidence in what you're selling, the value of what you're offering. Combine that with a specific structure or process that will help give you the confidence to have the gift of the gab. So you do not need that. That's not an essential. Sales has to be pushy or fake. Look, I hate to break it to you, but in fact, again, it's a myth. In actual fact, the best sales approach is when you are not pushy and you're not fake. Clients, consumers, customers, we know when there's BS. We can smell it a mile away. So in actual fact, the better sales approach and the better sales you have are from being authentic and always adding value. So it's 100% looking at how can I add value and be authentic to you and your style. You don't need to sell. So there's no surprises here, guys. I'm going to tell you, this is also a myth that we're going to bust. Every business, every person that is in business needs to sell. And I know this is something that MC talks about a lot. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what business you're in. Without sales, your business is a hobby. We know that. That's the truth of it. But even if your books are full, even if you have got clients on board and you're working with them and you're at capacity, I'd love to know, what is the life cycle of each of your clients? And pop in the comments here as well. Do you normally work with clients for a month, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years? Have a think about the lifestyle cycle of your average client, and pop some comments in here as well, and we'll come back to that. So if you think about the life cycle of your client, typically speaking, and you might have a few, but typically speaking, they're not with you from day one to day dot to the end. You will have some churn. So even if you have got good referrals coming in, there's still going to be churn of clients. And the way to look at that is looking at, in some instances, it's about growing your existing clients. Hence, you still need to sell and advise. It could be just maintaining your clients. You still need to be able to sell and continue to add value. Or it is acquiring new clients. So that's where some fall off, and you have to fill the books up again. So it's about grow, maintain, and acquire, and that consistency in selling. So we've got some comments here coming through. Yeah, ideally years, but a lot come and go. And that's the reality of it. It doesn't matter what business or firm you are, you can be the absolute best of the best. There's still going to be an element of having to go out there and get new business. So you must sell. We all need to get great in sales if we are in business. And if you've got a team of people, you need to invest in and make sure they have the support to be upskilled and developed in that area as well. So the next myth, you need to be an extrovert. It's absolutely not the case. So in actual fact, again, it's about understanding the systems and the processes. It's knowing your product. And the best sales, really what it comes down to is belief. So I delivered a training yesterday, and one of the biggest takeaways, there was an attendee who walked away just realizing, I need to revisit the belief that I have in the product. So we talk about belief and mindset of sales and what that means, but it's also belief in the product and the service that you are offering. So you don't, in fact, need to be an extrovert to be able to share that and get passionate about that. But you do need to have the belief and the structure and the process to support that as well. And the last one, the lucky last, advising is not selling. And I think it's pretty clear already to this point in this webinar that that is absolutely not the case. In actual fact, to put it in MC's words, it's a moral obligation. You are doing a disservice to your clients if you don't show them everything that you can offer them and that you can, how you can serve them. So it is, of course, the same thing. And it's just, if selling seems too hard, fake, pushy for you, look at it as advising. Advise your clients. I love the stat around going from 1.1 average products or services to 3. That's what you want to happen in your business, especially when we're looking at the percentage growth and the opportunity for growth that you guys have already shared with us. So myths busted. If you resonate with anything on the left-hand side, the left column, that would indicate that this is an area you really need to focus on. And your mindset and the beliefs that you have around all of these key areas are really important, and not just for you, but for your teams, for anybody that is customer facing or related to any sales. Really important that you work through that. So it could be unconsciously holding you back from that business growth. So it's super, super important and critical. So let me introduce you to the growth grid. Excellent. So the growth grid, as MC mentioned, there's 4 key quadrants of potential growth strategies for you to have a look at in your business. And I'll quickly run through them. When we have a look at the top quadrants and the bottom quadrants, we've got existing clients down below. So these are clients that are already working with you. It could be ad hoc. It could be that they've been with you for years and you're doing quarterly and halfly yearly reviews. At the top, we've got prospective clients. So these are new business clients. They're not already in the business with you, but there's an opportunity to go out there and get them. So if we break it down by grid, or by, quadrant, The first is around client share inbound. So client share is looking at increased revenue, sales, services, opportunity from existing clients. We're increasing client share. And that is very much quadrant one, existing clients coming to you and saying, hey, I know that you do offer these other services. I also want financial planning or ongoing advisory services. So they're really, really hot leads. Quadrant two, we look at prospective clients, new business clients, and it's outbound. So it's still inbound, but it's market share. So it's not from the existing clients that you've already got, it's the new business coming in. Now this, if you can get your marketing right, and I dare say, you know, with Paradox in tow, you're investing in all the marketing, you're getting great leads coming in, this is where sales and marketing really work hand in hand. Because what can happen is you've got this great marketing funnel in place, the marketing effort is paying off, the leads are coming in or the inquiries, but then it's the aspect from there, so the process from once the lead has come in, that's falling over. That's what we're going to focus on a lot today. So what does that actually look like once those leads are coming in? So hot leads again, because they're coming through to you. Quadrant three is client share again, so existing, however you are going out to communicate to them. So it's more of an outbound effort that you are going to existing clients to say, hey, these are all the other really cool things that we can do, and this is how we can help you. And the final one, of course, is quadrant four, which is still outbound. This is the coldest of the leads. And there are some cool tools and systems that you can use to help warm up some of those leads, but they're not proactively coming to you. So quadrants 1 and 2 are very much about existing or new potential clients coming to you. And quadrants 3 and 4 are all about you going out to them. So we'd love to do another quick poll here, if you don't mind. Just let us know, what quadrants do you think has the biggest potential for growth in your business? Now pop in 1 or 2 quadrants. Don't pop in all 4, because that indicates you're sitting on the fence. Which key area do you think you've got the biggest growth potential? Is it with existing clients and getting them to come to you? Is it with existing clients and you educating them a little bit better on what you can offer them, which is quadrant 3? Is it converting quadrant 2, those inbound leads that are already coming into you, a little bit better? So increasing conversion rates or shortening conversion rates? Or is it outbound communications to cold leads or people who don't know about you, which is quadrant 4? So pop in the quadrant. MC, I'm not sure if you can see how many people are actually surveying.
Yep, we're at 66% right now.
Fantastic, 66% guys, not too far to go. Can we hit the 80?
Yeah, we're very close. We're at 75.
75.
So another half dozen vote. We'll have a look at the results. Okay, I will end that poll now and share the results for you, Nikki, for you to talk to.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Okay, so quadrant 2 with equal quadrant 3. So so how to better convert those inbound inquiries that are already coming in, and how to get better at going back to existing clients. No surprises there. Absolutely, that makes sense, because it's often those quadrants 2 and 3 that we're not sure how to truly maximize the efforts for what's coming in, and how to then proactively go out to existing clients. And that can sometimes be part of the, that fear of selling comes in, because we don't want to be pushing, we don't want to be greedy. But in actual fact, massive opportunity, because they're already your clients, there's already trust. People will buy from you when they trust you, know you, like you. That's already there. Excellent. Thank you so much for that, MC. We'll close that out and move on. So with that in mind, it's all about modern day selling skills. The hard sell has left the building. And I know a lot of people will be really relieved to hear that, myself included. We don't want to do the hard sell anymore. And selling is oftentimes uncomfortable for people. And that's okay, because it might be something that's a bit new or different. So as we mentioned in the myth busting, If you've got a process to follow, there's some great advantages to that to ensure that you can gain confidence and certainty in going out there and offering your service to clients, or for your team to do the same. So it's really important to have 7 steps. We're going to say it's really important to have 7 steps in order for you to achieve sales mastery. Now, the other reason that is really critical is because if you have a team of people that are selling, and even if you don't at the moment, but you're in startup phase and you will grow, you could be losing sales if you don't have a systemized approach in place. You might not be following up. You could turn into proposal chasing. And what are the expectations? If there's no expectations set for your staff, for your teams, how do they know what the expectations of how often to follow up with a client, or when to touch base with them, or what the actual conversation should be to get them on board? So with all of this in mind, we've created the 7 steps to sales mastery, specifically for accountants and advisors. So let's have a look at this. Step 1 is perceptual shifting. Now, these 7 steps will be applicable to all 4 quadrants that we went through. However, today we're specifically going to focus on quadrant 2, which is the inbound sales. So leads and inquiries are coming through to you, and making sure that the sales process from there, you're converting it as often as you can and with a shorter conversion time. So step 1, perceptual shifting. This is very much about changing and being aware of, and then changing your perception, your team's perception, and the market's perception on how you can help your clients even more. Because again, those transactional or ad hoc clients that come through that see you as a tax accountant, we need to educate them on what else you can do for them. So it's really important that that starts internally. So internally and then internally within the business, and then you can take that externally. How you can do that: educational marketing, skilling and upskilling your teams, making sure they actually know what is available. For those of you that have larger firms, it's making sure the right hand is talking to the left hand. You might have specific advisors focusing on different specialties or niches or industries. So is everybody in the business across what else is available? So this is what you need to be thinking. Step 1, is everybody in the business across all the services that are available to our clients? How do they feel about it internally? And what is the culture around that in the business? And then how are you communicating that out externally to your clients? So step 1 is relevant for all of the 4 quadrants. Now, step 2, planning. This is so critical and it is so often overlooked. Step 2 is relevant for all of the 4 quadrants as well. However, it will vary a little bit because obviously any planning you do for a brand new business will be slightly different to an existing client. But the key here is about being prepared. It's researching the client prior to having an initial briefing, or it's researching the existing client to make sure if you're offering a particular service, it will be relevant, or what do you already know about that client. So planning is absolutely critical, and the time that you spend initially planning, which doesn't have to be really long. I mean, you can do this in 3 minutes, it doesn't have to be massive amount of time, but the benefit is that you come across much more confident, professional, and prepared, and like you care about the person that you're talking to at the other end of the phone or the computer screen or face-to-face. So let's take a quick look at some key things that you can look at when you're doing some pre-call planning. Now, again, this is specifically for quadrant 2. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on all of this, but for example, it's things like checking out their website, having a look at their About Us page. What do you understand about the values and the ethos of that company? Does it match with your values and ethos? And if that's the case, that's a great thing to talk about. How big is the company? How long have they been in business? How many partners and employees? Do some social media stalking. Set a time limit, as I said, because you don't want to get lost in this. And these are just different suggestions, but this is what we go through in a lot more detail when we do different workshops in certain key areas. So absolutely check your CRM system. Are they existing? But they may not be existing at the moment. Maybe they worked with you a couple of years ago. Heaps of great ideas here. that you do prior. Now, what you also want to do before you call them or you meet with them, one, check your mindset. Really important. You then also want to make sure that you've thought about the purpose of the call. It may be a different service, in fact, that you're offering them, but you want to have some idea of how the call or the meeting will go, and always be prepared. It's always a good thing to think about what's a potential objection. What is a potential barrier to this client coming on board with me? And when we do our workshops, we explore that so much, because in fact, when there's an objection, you can often overcome it before it has even come up, just by asking the right questions. Okay. Oh, and be prepared. There you go, for objections. Now, they're the first two steps that are relevant for all 4 quadrants. Step 3 and step 4 are very much about uncovering the needs. And for quadrant 2, where it's a new business and you don't know anything about them other than the little bit of stalking you've done, and they don't know a lot about you, so this is very much the exploration stage. So initial needs analysis is the first point of understanding what your client's potential needs are and making sure that there's a good fit as well on both ends. So some key things here to remember. It's absolutely the first crucial step of the sales process. You will have a series of structured questions. Again, that's where that confidence comes in, to be able to ask the right questions and get the right information. So you can develop some scripts. You can do different role plays, video the role plays, get them to have a look at it. So confronting at first, but wonderful to do in terms of upskilling and development. Make sure the questions are actually in your CRM as well. So really cool little simple things that you can take away and start implementing now to make sure that that first point of contact when the client comes to you is professional, structured, and you're getting the information that you need to be able to provide a really relevant solution in the end. Keep it conversational, absolutely, but it still needs to be thorough. And again, in this point, you're selling them on the process. So you're identifying that there's a need that you can help with, you're building rapport, and you're getting buy-in from the sales process from here. Now, it doesn't have to be the senior partner director or the senior advisor that does this process, but it will then be so much easier to pass that on to whoever will close the sale and do the initial. And the last point on this is using the 3-step evaluation to describe it to them. Excellent. So initial needs analysis. Here's a great snapshot from Paradox. And there's a really great tool here. If you're a member of the Modern Marketing Academy, you can jump in and access a sample of some INA or initial analysis needs scripts. And I definitely recommend that you do jump in there, download it, check it out, and tweak it so that you can use that as well. Beautiful. So step 4. Oh, here we go. So step 4 is all about the gap analysis. So you've got a good understanding of the 3 key areas that we just mentioned. You've got buy-in, yep, they're wanting to jump on board and go through the next step, part of the process. This is where the client will do a gap analysis of where they feel. So it's much more detailed. I'm going to run through as I talk some visual examples of a real life gap analysis. So the client fills this out themselves. And it's looking at things like where they've been, what systems and processes they're already using, what is the current state. This will also uncover what's prompted them to come to you. The measurables, looking at some different numbers. What is the, again, the current state. So how are you measuring it? How are you reviewing it? What are the numbers that you need to know? What great information for you to know to then be able to identify the gap to provide that solution. And really all of the INA, the gap analysis, it's all about identifying the gap so that you can help plug those gaps and provide that really fantastic service that's missing from what they've already got. Now, the beautiful thing about the gap analysis is it gets them to tell you where they feel the opportunity is. And you can jump on and have a look at this in the cell. But the thing about them telling you about where the opportunity is that they're telling you in their own words, so they will believe it to be true. A couple of key points of the benefits of the gap analysis. Again, it provides a specific structure and it provides that certainty for you and for the potential client as well. It really impresses those prospective clients. It shows that there's systems and techniques and technology that you're using, and you're using it. You know, you're leading by example and being a great role model in that space. It's a great way to get some comprehensive data gathering, and it absolutely accelerates you in understanding your client. So when that lead is passed on, they can absolutely hit the ground running when we get to the next step in providing the solution. And as we said, it's really about what those needs are, what the gaps are. Advisory services, this is really important, can only be sold when the person themselves sees the gap themselves. Because as I mentioned, if you say it to be true, they might highly likely believe it. However, if they say it to be true, they will absolutely, it is their truth. And not only that, they will defend it. And this is where the intricacies of the questions that you're asking can help bring out some of those objections and really just any concerns and getting them to tell you why they need you. It's absolute gold. Okay, so again, this actually removes the free advice. Like, how many of you feel like you're constantly giving free advice and not getting a great return? What this does is give you a structure and a process to follow to actually remove that as well. And it's a clear diagnosis that leads to the prescription, which is your proposal, and this is step 5. So it's providing a solution and gaining commitment. Now, the way to do this is through a live collaborative scoping document. And the idea behind this is you're not just doing up a proposal and sending it off, never to hear from them again. That's where you become a proposal chaser. What this is about is working collaboratively with them, coming up with suggestions and solutions in the moment, and be able to then offer really relevant solutions, but also see and calibrate where the potential client is at in the moment. So if you're falling way out of budget, way over their budget, or if you're not hitting the mark, you can calibrate live in the moment by video conferencing or face-to-face to be able to then tweak and change your solution to then gain commitment in that moment. So I believe we have an example here. Oh, no, here we go, of a collaborative scoping and pricing tool. Now, this is a really great tool that you can all jump on and have a look at, Practice Ignition, and it allows you to do exactly that. It's such a fantastic tool that's been designed specifically for accountants and advisors. So you can build it together, you can show the client what they need, what services they need, get commitment from them, email it off to them, they click yes, and then it automatically goes into the back end, goes into your invoicing system and the whole shebang. So it's such a fantastic tool to use, and I highly recommend you have a look at that. Excellent.
For some reason, Nikki, your slide hasn't changed to show the Practice Ignition slide yet for us.
Oh.
Are you seeing it okay? Maybe if you unshare and reshare, it might refresh. Is everyone seeing that okay?
Thank you for that.
No worries. I'll be your slide clicker person.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Well, thank you, MC. Excellent. So this is our Practice Ignition, as I mentioned. Lots of great information and tools in there. So you can jump in, have a look around, see if it fits for you. But the benefits, again, of doing a live collaborative scoping with the client is you can really read them, and you can also get sign-off right then and there. Our goal here is to increase conversions and shorten conversion time, and it's these types of tools that will really help you do that. Thank you, MC. We could go to the next slide. So step 6, this is about onboarding. Now, some people would argue that this is where the true sales cycle begins, because once you've onboarded a client, it's so important that you deliver on what you've sold. And it's also ensuring that it's not just a one-stop shop, set and forget, that's it. What else are you doing to ensure that you wow your client, you're giving them great service, that they're happy with what they've, that it's being fulfilled, what they've purchased is being fulfilled, and their expectations are being met. The thing to remember here is that it's much, much, much easier to upsell to an existing client or keep an existing client happy, so this is where we're talking about grow and maintain, than it is to get a brand new client on board. Like, think about those brand new clients, how much effort in time, money, resource is spent on getting them in. Once they're here, make sure you look after them. Look at the onboarding process. Is the client clear on what the next steps are? Is there a check-in process to make sure and follow up that their expectations are being met? Once you've done that, you can then click over to the next step, MC please, which is step 7, and it's all about referral and repeat strategies. So referrals are a fantastic way to get new leads on board and warm leads. Remember with the growth grid, we went through quadrant 1 and 2 were hot leads, quadrant 3 were warm leads, and quadrant 4 were cold leads. So once you have an existing client, it's not just about repeat strategies, making sure that you're doing your quarterly, half-yearly review, identifying gaps in how you can continue to help them, but it's also about who else do they know that you could actually help as well. So that's a really high-level view of the 7 steps to sales mastery. And it's like a loop. Once you get to 7, then you're back through again to each of the different quadrants, and they overlay each other. Now, this is all great information, and I'm sure there's lots of nuggets of gold that you can take away and implement. But what's important here is looking at what is your existing sales process and is it actually broken? So let's check out some key points here to see, is in fact your sales process as up to date as it could be? You don't have a structured, documented sales process in place. When a prospect calls for an appointment, there's no initial needs analysis in place. So there's no process in how to manage that. Oh, this is a big one. You talk about firm, prices, packaging, services, everything before you've asked any questions. If you do that, it's a massive no-no because you're not really understanding the needs, the specific needs of that particular client. Really important. You send proposals and pricing to the prospects after the meeting. So this is instead of the modern day sales process, which is a live scoping document. Instead, you just email them something and that's it, never to be seen again. And again, that's when you can turn into the proposal chaser. So you're constantly phoning, emailing. They were really wanted to jump on board with you. They wanted to work, and all of a sudden they've disappeared. Don't know if you guys can resonate with that, but it's a common challenge in business. Excellent. So just to the next slide. Thanks, MC. So there's no structured upsell, cross-sell. Now, this is what we talked about in terms of quadrant 3. So going back to existing clients in a really confident, certain, and respectful way to be able to get more out of them or be able to help them in more ways. Yeah, really, really critical and really important. You're not contacting those existing clients proactively. You're not making suggestions. Again, this comes down to perceptual shifting. So do they even know what is on offer for you? Remember that it might not be just for them, but maybe it's a family member that is in business or a family member that needs certain support and services from your firm as well. So it's never just that one person that you're connecting with, that you're selling to. It's their whole networks and then their whole networks as well. How about not measuring sales metrics, leads, conversion rates? Are you across your numbers? Yeah, you might be from a marketing point of view, but then what about the sales numbers to make sure that those leads are converting? Really, really important. And really key as well is what upskilling are you doing with your staff? You know, how are you supporting them to, again, take on board these modern day sales skills, or what product and service training are you doing so that they're across everything? What training have you done for them in terms of effective communication, which essentially that is what sales is. So the thing I want you to think about here, the whole purpose of this is looking at the reality here is that you could be losing money right now. If those 9 things are happening in your business, you're literally leaving money on the table and walking away, simply because you do not have the right sales process in place. There's so much that we've covered off in this webinar. You can revisit it, listen, re-watch. There's great areas of opportunity to look at sales and business growth and the strategy behind it. There's the 7 steps that you can implement to that, and really doing a self-audit on your business to see where those gaps are. So with that in mind, as MC mentioned, we have been collaborating to look at best practice in accounting professions as well as sales to bring the two together, and created a sales mastery workshop series. Now, the way this works, it's very much a matrix, and I'd love to just quickly take you through what that looks like. So the matrix means that you can stack and pack, and it's like the building blocks. And we've created 3 different levels or tracks. The first being advisor, the second being the manager, and the third being the leader. And I'll talk you through why we've done it this way and what the benefit is for your business. So if we go to the next slide, thanks MC, the advisor is very much about building on what we've covered off today, looking at first and foremost the mindset around sales, the beliefs, the values, and everything that goes on internally, which can be holding your business back as much as any other strategy or technique you could be putting in place. We then do a really deep dive into the 7 steps of the sales mastery, broken down for each of the 4 quadrants. And through the workshops, there's more advanced workshops as well. The manager is more of a helicopter. So you must go through advisor to get through to manager. We need to be on the same page in order to be able to train, develop, teach our teams. But for manager, we look at the hard skills. Again, what are the numbers that we need to know? How are we managing that? So it's about what's the sales workflow, the sales pipeline within the team. So also understanding the concept of market share and client share and how they impact your results. We then go to leader track, which is very much about, we explore the 4 key archetypes of human behavior and how to communicate to them, both from an internal staff engagement point of view, as well as an external with clients point of view. We look at how to attract and recruit staff, but the big thing here is very much about staff engagement. So it's about the soft skills that you're applying. There's a little bit more of a breakdown here for you to have a look at, and it all tracks through foundation through to breakthrough to revolutionary, which is very much about setting the foundations. Advisory is advanced selling. Once you get through a full day and 2 half-day workshops, it's advanced selling techniques under your belt. The manager, again, is how to manage that in terms of more specifics, goal setting with and for the team. There's a whole bunch of great information there for you to have a look at, proactive versus reactive selling, and you're also learning some tools and techniques to be able to coach and continue to develop your teams. Because again, for it to be sustainable for the long term, it's not just about jumping in, doing a great workshop and training, and then walking away and that's it, it's done. It's about what are you doing to continue to support your teams so they can get the best results for your business. And as we move to leader, again, it's more about the soft skills. So much information has been shared today, and I'm really aware of time, and we've also got some Q&As coming up. So we want the next step to be super simple for you, really easy and a no-brainer. So the next step here would be to request and book in a complimentary sales audit with myself, and we'll actually have a really good look at your business and identify where those gaps are and what's needed in your business to ensure that you're increasing those conversions and you're getting that 20 to 40% additional growth. MC, I'm going to flick back over to you here. We've got a quick poll. Great. So if you could let us know what you would like your next step to be. You can book in directly a sales order with myself, book in a chat, a phone chat, or and lots of other options.
Yeah, cool. Fantastic. Thanks, Nikki. And in a moment, everyone, we'll get through to the Q&A. You can see some questions waiting for us there. So do take the time to tick more than one option here. If you want to talk with us, cool. Click any of those first 4 options, ranging from please call me to email me to let's talk next month, let's talk in a few months, because I understand depending on what country you're in, things are kind of busy at the moment. So that's cool. You just let us know the time frame for Nikki to get in touch. Other things you can tick on this poll is whether you want a copy of today's slides. So some of those slides had a lot of information in them around some of those checklists for pre-call planning. And let us know if you'd want a link to the webinar recording. And, you know, the no thanks ones are okay too. You know, we've got thick skin. If you're just a tire kicker and here for the food, no, look, don't tick that even as a joke. But that's okay if you tick no thanks as well. Now, I'm going to leave that up live just while people are thinking about their options there. And Nikki, if you want to come back and we'll go through a couple of questions. Kirsten has asked, can you touch on when they, prospective client are not a fit upon that initial research and upon meeting. So let's say your initial research, you think, don't want them as a client, or initial needs analysis, don't want them as a client, or potentially you probably wouldn't even go to a meeting, I wouldn't think, if you've done the research and the initial needs analysis properly. But over to you, Nikki, to comment on that. And I'd like to add to that after you do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point, and it's part of the reason that this process is so important, because it's an interview process on both sides. You've got to make sure that there's a values alignment and a good fit on both sides. And you also have to make sure that you can actually help them. And in some instances, unfortunately, that's not the case. Either they're not a good fit or you can't help them, which is also why it's so critical that this process is in place to identify that early on. The pain really comes when you work with them anyway, you onboard them, and then later on, it just doesn't work out. You know, that's where it gets really ugly and messy. So follow this particular INA and you'll be able to eliminate that pain. Thank you for the question.
And thanks to everyone who's let us know, and I'll take this blame. The poll only let us choose one option. One little radio button missed there. That's cool. Just pick the most pressing option for you. And note on the slide I've just moved to, note down Nikki's email address, nikki@evergreencoaching.com.au. Feel free to email Nikki or myself, mc@practiceparadox.com.au, and you can communicate with us directly there. But thanks, guys, for letting us know that you could only choose. But back to Kirsten's question. One of my favorite sayings, you'll hear me say it a lot, is let's go upstream. So let's see what led to that. So if someone gets an inquiry from a prospective client who's not a fit, if you go upstream from that, you've got to think, how did that happen? So there's two ways it could happen. One is a referral from a client, an existing client, of someone that's just not a fit for you. And the other is your marketing message. So someone's just discovered you and come to you and they're not a fit. So in both cases, you look at, as the Olympians say when they're training, or any high performance athlete, in their training regimen, it's always, let's control the controllables. Let's only focus on what we can control, or what Stephen Covey calls the circle of influence rather than the circle of concern. And with your referrals, you take the control there of saying, how can I better educate my clients as to the types of clients I'm looking to grow with and attract moving forward? So that's number one. And number two, make sure your marketing message is very strategic around that. But let's get to the point where you are having a conversation and you think these guys are just not a fit. One of the things that I love is the use of fit, because I know no one likes to be rejected. And I think unless you're a bit of something or other, you don't like to reject others. You know, it can be hurtful. So it's not about they're not good enough for you. You may or may not feel that, but you just describe it as fit, because fit is neutral. It's not saying you're superior or they're not good enough. You just say, look, based on what you've shared with me in this conversation, Jane, it looks to me like we're probably not a good fit for you with what you're looking to do. If you just want us to do your tax and your lower level bookkeeping, whilst we do that, we only work with people who want to grow and improve. The good news is I know some very good practitioners who focus on that technical end solely and do that, and I'd be more than happy to introduce you. So you say, not a fit, here's why, but I'll introduce you. Upon the meeting, your INA will enable you to screen them out before the meeting, which is a beautiful thing. If you find someone is asking questions where they're really price sensitive, if they're asking questions where they seem impatient, or you just don't get a good vibe, you screen them out in that initial needs analysis. One more question, conscious that we've gone a little bit over time. Jerry has asked, in the INA, the initial needs analysis, the implication questions are an area I'd like to hear you discuss. Jerry is trained in a methodology called SPIN, awesome book called Spin Selling. S is for situation, P for problem, I for implications, and N for needs payoff. Feel free to comment on this, Nikki. I'll just start there. Now, in today's webinar, we've given you the tip of an iceberg. We're together, it's introductory. There is a massive iceberg beneath the waterline here of skills. So we didn't get to those today, but implications are when someone's sharing, they've gone beyond understanding their situation and they've shared their problems. is the questioning techniques to get them to talk about what are the implications to them in their life and their business of those problems that they've already described. Nikki, if you care to comment on those implication type questions?
Yeah, and I think the great thing about effective questioning, and the questioning is the backbone of the sales conversation, and it's very much about looking at it from an emotional and logical way. So when we make buying decisions, we actually make the decision emotionally and we justify it logically. So the questions that you ask, it needs to have a balance of both to be able to really showcase what the implications are, the consequences, what will happen if nothing changes, etc. Because if you have too much of one or the other, it's just not going to be as effective. If it's too rational and logical, the types of questions that we're asking, we can close down the sale and not get very far. However, it can't be too emotional. So it has to be the balance of both. So whenever I look at different types of questioning techniques, it's about balancing emotional and logical or rational. It's always about uncovering what the problem, the pain is, absolutely highlighting the consequence of that, and then also looking at future state. So it's about that gap to be able to then effectively provide that solution. But again, the great thing about the questions is that your potential client tells you rather than you telling them. It's an ask versus tell scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great paradoxes that I love is in a conversation, the person who's speaking least is driving the conversation because they're the ones asking questions. And the questions are like the steering wheel of the conversation. So great. Thank you, Jerry, for raising that as a question. Fascinating questioning soft skills. So guys, from here, in wrapping up, I highly recommend that you talk to Nikki, go through her sales audit process. That's a value add in and of itself. But if you do regular, and let's face it, if you're a serious business, you do regular staff, team training, whether it's annually, quarterly, monthly, you need to blend in a balance of the technical skills and the soft skills. Another irony, the soft skills are the hard skills for many of us. So that needs to be invested in. You need to take it seriously. And even if you're not having a team training session for, a number of months, schedule it in because Nikki's calendar is a very full one. So have a chat with Nikki, explore where the potential gaps are in your current sales process, and make it time for Nikki to come and spend half day, full day, and start to go through that sales mastery matrix across advisors, across the managers and across the leaders, because they are very different skill sets. And as a leader in your business, if you master all of those and upskill your advisory team in the first two, you're really going to smash it out of the park. So thanks everyone for taking the time out of your busy day or evening, depending which country you're in, to spend time with Nikki and I. Thank you, Nikki, for sharing your expertise and your frameworks around your sales process. It's been wonderful working on this with you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, MC, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I look forward to having some one-on-one conversations and seeing how we can continue to add that value and close those gaps.
All right, well, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday or Tuesday evening, and we'll catch you next month for another free webinar from the team at Practice Paradox, and also again in the future with Evergreen Coaching. Bye for now.